In today's episode, we're going to talk about the gear that had worked from us from Chicago all the way up to Alaska and all the way back down to Florida. A lot of this video is going to be discussing the climb gear that we used along the way.
We're also going to cover our tents, the differences between our Nemo tent and the Big Agnes. And not everything that we brought survived the trip, so we'll talk about that as well.
But we did.
We did, we survived.
We survived.
Yes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Two Up and Overloaded. I am Tim Notier.
And I'm Marisa Notier.
And we are Two Up and Overloaded. We've been pretty much halfway around the world, we'll claim at this point.
Three continents.
And we're going to go ahead and call this episode Prime Time, Climb Time. We're going to discuss some of the gear that we've brought on the road, what our wish lists were,
yes,
what our requirements were, and how they tested. You got new pants. Just a disclaimer at the beginning, a proclamation, if you will. We have been sponsored by KLIM, so all of the gear that we're going to be discussing we received for free.
That is true.
And we are very thankful for that.
Yes.
But we will still be as brutally honest about all the gear
as always,
and about how our tent. We're going to discuss some other things too. The tent we use, sleeping
camping
pad.
stuff.
We'll let you know if any or all of that was needed, required, how it lasted, and how it held up.
And things did change. I mean, this whole trip to Alaska and back was a really, really good test of all of this gear.
Well, the previous 4 years we had spent going through the Americas. And halfway up through Africa. And we had some old gear that after a 4-year, 5-year lifespan was starting to deteriorate.
It was pretty bad in comparison to our current setup. None of it was waterproof. It functioned.
Sometimes that works. There's different suits for different applications. We wanted an overall encompassing suit. If you spend most of your time in Arizona or Baja, for example, the Baja suit's got your name all over it.
Exactly.
You know? But we wanted something that would keep us warm, would keep us dry, would keep us cool, and do all of those pretty well.
Our basic plan was to go to the very top of Alaska from Chicago via some of the desert areas of the U.S. Southwest. So pretty much all the seasons, all in one trip. And it was going to be like a 6-month journey to the top of Alaska and back.
So what we did end up getting, I got the TK 1200 helmet for both of us.
Yes.
They had like this transitional visor that we will tell you what our feelings on that is. I got the Carlsbad jacket and pants set. And the Adventure GTX boots, which have like this weird BOA system that like clicks in. It's really, really nice. And Marisa.
Yeah, so KLIM also has a women's gear line, which was super awesome for me. They have women's gear that is designed by women, made for women, and fit me very well. I took the Artemis Adventure jacket and pants set in the mint green color, yes. I also had some base layers, Solstice 3.0, which are the thickest base layers that KLIM makes. Along with some awesome super thick socks, the Hibernate socks. And because I was really, really concerned about the cold for Alaska, I get cold really easily, especially on the motorcycle, I wanted to bring some heated gear.
I got all my layers on today. My neck buff, my
down jacket under my motorcycle jacket, my heated gear under that. Yeah, I mean, we're going to the Arctic, so I should be prepared. This is made by First Gear, and we brought the heated gear jackets and heated gear liners, glove liners. And so for camping, we had been using the Nemo Losi 2P tent with its extended garage. But as you will see, not everything that we brought with us passed the test.
Yeah, but what we knew would pass the test was our enlightened equipment. Quilt.
Oh my
Marissa's
gosh.
First true love.
I do love that quilt.
But we took off with big smiles and excitement to get to Alaska and to try out our brand new shiny white, still, you know, not one dead bug splattered against it, you know.
That was soon to change.
That would soon change. The first major thing that I noticed was our helmets, the TK 1200s.
We wanted to go with modular helmets.
Yes.
We'd always been using modular helmets on our around the world travels because we really like to be able to flip it up and talk to people. It's really good to get directions or like, hey, where's gas, where's restaurant and stuff. So we really wanted to stick with the modular helmets. So we got the TK 1200 helmets.
Yeah, they're really it was funny when we first got them. Marissa got it out of the thing. She's like, it feels kind of cheap because it was so light.
So light.
And I'm like, that's how expensive it is. You know, it's not this heavy burden on your head, and it's, you know,
it's a carbon helmet.
Yeah.
So it is made out of this super strong light material.
Yeah, and it had
It's
like
amazing.
these transitional visors because in my old helmet, my Schubert,
I don't know.
one of those two.
Schubert.
The C3, which was a pretty good helmet all in itself as well, but it had that Tom Cruise, Top Gun, you know, little drop down thing, and I
Like
loved
the sun visor?
Yeah. With this new helmet, I would ride with the visor up and glasses on, and I kept getting stung. So that quickly changed my whole riding style.
Yeah,
changed within days.
You got stung by a bee right in your face.
Yeah, right in my face.
And it was swelled up so badly. It looked like you got into a
Looked like
fight
the
with Mike
elephant man.
Tyson. Yeah.
For Marissa's mom.
See, over the night, the little bee sting that got me yesterday has dramatically swollen. So hopefully I can take out some Benadryl or something.
The transition part of the helmet worked flawlessly.
So the transitions, it automatically goes from a darker kind of sunglasses shade to the visor to clear for nighttime.
So another important feature about this helmet that we got that was so brand new and shiny and sleek and lovely, we just wanted to make sure that our Cardo units were loud and clear within the helmet.
And those are our Bluetooth communication system that we use to listen to our music, podcasts, audiobooks, but also to talk to each other, most importantly, on the road.
Most importantly, it's the music, folks. 98% of the time I'm blasting Guns N' Roses. And there's a couple times where we talk, but there's no podcast going on my headphones. There's no audiobooks. It is
90% Axl Rose.
Axl Rose or Marissa. Shout out to Cardo.
Yes.
And shout out to the
great.
KLIM helmet, the TK 1200, because beautiful setup.
We loved that helmet.
We love.
Yeah, we still love it.
Yes. One of the first elemental challenges we had that we knew was upcoming was heat.
Yes. Which is interesting because we specifically chose this KLIM gear for its waterproof ability. I mean, KLIM is known for its Gore-Tex, super awesome waterproof material that can also be breathable.
Yeah.
So we were really looking forward to that for Alaska, you know, that waterproofness to withstand the cold and the wind. But we were also going to be going through this very, very hot, arid area
Yeah.
of the United States of the
Going
Southwest.
through deserts.
Yeah.
Arizona, Phoenix in particular. Phoenix.
Oh my goodness.
I don't think the bird ever re-rose. I think
It's just smoldering.
smoldering ashes. It's hot.
It's hot.
It's really, really, really hot. It's 105 degrees. The oil temperature is 240. The bike is pretty much overheating the most that it's ever been. So I pulled over. There's some really good vents, and there's a huge vent on mine, right on the breast. The
Yes.
left breast.
And if you count the 2 upper pockets here, which has vent material inside. The jacket that I have, the Artemis, has 10 vents.
She is highly ventilated. She's
Yes.
the ventilator, if you will. Our first test was this extreme heat. It got a little toasty, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Oh my God, I'm dying. And also the collars had this cool feature where you can unzip it a little bit, and they have these little elastic bands that hook on these little plastic hooks. And so you can get some really, really good airflow going in.
As well as the pants. My pants have 2 vents that actually, like, you can stick your hand all the way through. So that air is just, as you're moving on the motorcycle, that wind is just coming through across your legs, which is amazing.
And I run hot. I run much hotter than Marisa. Most of you will probably agree. But I take that back. Most of you probably disagree, except for my few true fans. So it survived the test. It didn't make me absolutely miserable. Was it toasty? Was it as breezy as, say, a Baja jacket or an induction? No, but then once you get into some of these other places that we're going to discuss, we're looking for an awesome all-arounder, 9.8 rating in any given situation. The second test that we entered into was when we got into Yellowstone. Because there was like a biblical-esque flood going on there, and it snowed. Yeah.
So this is our first day of our Yellowstone tour, and as you can see, it's a little bit rainy.
Yeah. So this was a good test to check the waterproofness of the jacket.
Yes.
We were actually on a tour with
Temple of Moto.
So we were driving through the park and just torrential downpours. Yeah, I had these African gloves that were leather, and they were super awesome for the $10 that I spent back there. But there was the one piece of climb gear that I had not had as of yet. We were actually on our way to Idaho to pick up a couple things. My jacket and my pants, I was completely dry. I've worn so many suits that after hours of being barraged, if that's a word, I get this little, tuxedo
wetness. It comes in through the collar, it comes in through the zipper.
Yeah.
When we went to go see the Grand Prismatic Pools in Yellowstone, it was just pouring down rain. When we got back to the motorcycle, my seat was sopping wet. And I got on, and I thought, oh no, the same thing is happening again. My bum is getting wet because I just sat down on this seat.
Your bum?
But actually it was the cold of the wet seat coming through because after many hours of riding later, I got off the motorcycle and I realized I was completely dry.
Dry bum.
It was amazing.
Yeah. It's really good to know that you don't have to worry about that. My one failure was the gloves, these little African gloves that the water got in and then it just seeps in. You know? And like I was on that motorcycle and like my fingers were numb. It was so wet and it was so cold. I just couldn't
move.
wait until we got the climb gloves that we were picking up in Rigby, Idaho.
So when we were camping in Yellowstone, it snowed on us at night.
Yes.
And we realized two important things. First of all, I got to try out my Solstice 3.0 base layers. Good morning. You can tell here that there's snow on the tent. I slept in this, my down jacket, with my hat, all my thermal wear. I slept pretty warmly. I didn't even realize it was that cold. So they kept me super, super warm. They have these awesome like thumb holes, and it slips over your ankle so that you are able to put on your boots and put on your jacket without it rolling up.
Everybody needs to make those thumb holes. They only make them for females. Moscow Moto does it, right? They give the males thumb holes. Because when you are wearing a jacket, when you're putting on your jacket and you have a long sleeve shirt, the long sleeve gets all the way up here. Pro thumb hole. So those worked out fantastically. I also used the Hibernate socks, which were super thick and warm. The second thing we realized was our Nemo Losi 2 tent was very leaky.
Yeah.
Where it had worked perfectly and for years, but where the garage meets the tent itself is kind of a flawed area. It's
a weak point for sure.
Yeah.
And we found that there were leaks coming into our tent area where we were sleeping. Here's the tent part. And we put that reflective tarp over it. But unfortunately our quilt, my favorite thing in the world besides Tim, is wet. We thought, maybe it's time for an upgrade.
Yeah, it was just something that it was a good test in this Yellowstone like natural disaster that we I don't know if you guys remember that. But,
it closed down Yellowstone.
It closed Yellowstone down, and we were there,
But the crazy news is they have closed Yellowstone. That's right. They closed it because I guess the gates were flooding, which I'm not surprised to hear.
But we definitely wanted an upgrade to our tent, just like I wanted an upgrade to my gloves. Anything that failed right now, it was good to realize what was not working within the first month, opposed to now we're in Alaska.
And the place to do so would be the headquarters of KLIM in Idaho.
This is true.
Really cool building.
Yeah, it's like a weird architecture you'd find in some fancy downtown area. And when we got to the headquarters, I was able to pick up the Badlands, GTX long gloves.
Yes.
They're waterproof, they're warm, they're absolutely amazing. And I also, I switched from the Carlsbad pants to the Latitude pants, just more of a personal style.
It was just a better fit.
Yeah.
We got a tour of the whole facility.
It was super secret though, so I couldn't take any footage.
Yeah, we couldn't take any footage of that.
There's some magical things going on in there.
There is.
Spoiler alert, they put a lot of the armor in like the rec room's freezer just to test it at different, so you like open it up to get like your frozen little Lunchable meal, and there's a bunch of like 3D armor everywhere.
Yeah. So we learned about the history of KLIM. Basically, they got their start in snowmobile gear because the founders of it realized that they couldn't find any good gear that was really, really waterproof. And they were one of the first pioneers to start using Gore-Tex.
So there was, a lot of fun facts. When we were in Idaho, and I got my new gloves, and I got my new pants, my Latitude pants.
We got our new Big Agnes tent. Big Agnes.
Blacktail Hotel Backpack 2. Bike pack.
Tent.
Not stick down all the way, but and so we hit back out on the road.
But the ultimate test of whether this gear was waterproof or not happened when we were on the Dalton Highway up to Dead Horse, Alaska. It rained very powerfully on us.
Very powerfully.
For hours and hours. And there was no salvation. There was no rest stops that you could take. There was no restaurants along the way. It was just mud and rain and cold. And it's one of the most remote areas on Earth that you can go to by road. And so we really, really were very concerned about getting wet. If we got wet and cold, that could have been a very dangerous situation for us. But thankfully, this gear was perfect.
From the helmet to the jacket to the pants to the boots, just dry.
I was concerned about the zippers. You know, sometimes that's a point where water can get through. Water, when you're going at those speeds, it just likes to go into all the little cracks. It somehow gets around everything. But these zippers were waterproof. It was amazing. This is yucky. And as we were finishing our trip of Alaska, it started to turn into fall, which is the time of year when things get colder and colder and colder. The trees were changing colors. Every night it was dipping below freezing. So as you can see, the weather has really changed quite abruptly. Can't even see the glacier anymore. Wind just cuts right through. And on our trip down to Homer, we came across some pretty nasty weather along with really cold temperatures.
But in the cold of Alaska, as we were camping all this way, our tent was surviving and not blowing down, and it was awesome. Our enlightened equipment quilt was up to everything it needed to be. Mariska slept in her weird hibernation socks and solstice crap every night. And we had the Quasar sleeping pads from Nemo, our new Big Agnes tent. We love.
It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. But the Nemo Quasar sleeping pads, they're awesome, and we continue to use them to this day.
Yeah, Quasar 3D actually
That's correct.
is what they're called. We were so thankful that we brought our heated gear.
It was awesome. The heated gloves, I will say, the liners, and I just love doing this. Anytime we talk about gloves, I do like this sleight of hand thing. They kept your hands like room temperature.
I kind of like them, but they work very, very faintly. Not strong heat, you can barely feel it, but it does do something. It is better than nothing.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if there was a little bit extra
warmer.
oomph, but
That's true.
my fingers never got how they were at Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And then overall encompassing from Chicago to the heat of Phoenix to the rain and the cold that Yellowstone at altitude can be to the
To
mild
the tundra of
to-
Alaska.
Yeah, but in any of those scenarios where it gets hotter, it gets a little bit colder, it's just unzip here, unzip there, zip that up, maybe throw on, you know, the solstice base layer stuff in the mornings. You'd always throw that on, but it was never any of this. We need to get off the bike
Yeah.
and completely change our wardrobe. So the
Absolutely.
universality has just been
Perfect.
absolutely perfect.
What we wanted.
So I got a stop foot for the brake. And this one's for the go-go. That's the clutch. That's the clutch.
How are your boots?
So the boots had held up. You know, I mean, they're always grinding against the ground when you're stopping. They paired up with like Michelin tires, and so the soles of the boots are really durable and awesome. Almost to the point where you put them on and forget about them. But they're awesome with this little BOA locking system that
that's
tighten
cool.
up.
And waterproof.
And waterproof.
Gore-Tex, right?
They are indeed Gore-Tex. All of the links to the gear that we've been talking about is the first link down below, and it will bring you to just a nice bullet point of everything that we have brought.
That's right. We have a very detailed section on our gear page of every single item, including our toothbrushes. Like everything that we bring and pack on the motorcycle is all listed there in the gear page. So put in the comments below your thoughts and your experiences with any of this gear. We'd love to hear it.
I hope this video may have shined some light on some of your gear questions that you've had about us.
If it did, please give us a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below. Ding ding! And we'll be seeing you next time. This might be the bonus video of our season, but it is not the end of all of our videos.
This
so
is
please
true.
stay tuned.
Spoiler alert, we got some new gear for our next place. Stay safe, everybody.
Bye.
Peace. But a lot of people are very curious about one thing in particular, and it's that little flower on Marisa's backpack.
Yes.
But every continent or every other continent, I like to buy Marisa a forever flower that she can put on her backpack just to let the world know how beautiful she is. And
Aw,
yeah, they're
thank you.
fake flowers, so they last a long time.
Yes, it is plastic.
It is. People always ask, like, how does that flower last on the bike in the wind and the rain?